I heard your little speech got rave reviews.
Now you've seen my face. Now you know who's behind this. I hope you know that I will. ABC. That's right, bananas 00. A, B, C.
Well, yes, on that front we have good news for you. Oh, and 66?
I know. Always be closing.
No, I was going to say, aren't you forgetting something? Don't forget who you work for.
Okubo here at GoIndieNow, and today we're going to be dealing with Barstow, California. It is a wonderful, wonderful film, and it has to do with such a wonderful topic and something that I think is poignant for all films in documentaries, and that is the small town USA mentality. I'm from California originally, and I've lived in the high desert, Hesperia, and I've visited Barstow many, many times. And to see a documentary like this being done so well and touching so many people is just an amazing thing to see. And with that, let's get into the story. Barstow it's a documentary told through the voice of a prison inmate who spent most of his time in prison, and he comes from that area. You also get to meet the people that are living there now. This film was shot and done and released in 2018. It's a wonderful, wonderful film, and I really recommend it. If you love documentaries, I would recommend it. But I also recommend this film for people who don't know much about the USA. You know, we get lost in these large cities, and the small towns is where we actually see the most out of real people, I think. And coming from a small town myself, you know, these people really stick together, and seeing them talk fondly about their town. And I've gone to Barstow quite a few times when I was living in California, and many people just drive by it on their way to Las Vegas, and actually stopping there and getting to meet the people, having something to eat there is just an amazing experience, because you're not going to see that in many places in the U.S. Usually they're really, really inundated with the highlights and stuff that people want as tourist locations. Barstow is more down home kind of thing, and this documentary really, really brought that home.
My skin feels warm and alive this San Quentin September, as though I'm a lizard sunning on a big rock. Instead, I am wearing prison blues, shirt, pants, and coat, plus brown high-top boots and dark shades. The coat and shades I wear whenever I'm outside the cell. The Indian summer at San Quentin and the sweet sun brings back the times I ran the dry river with the greyhound dogs and laid under the heavy black railroad bridge as the trains rumbled across, shaking the soft sands. In those times, I watched the shadows of the railroad cars draw by, and when night fell on a hot day, played kick the can in pure desert darkness. There were no streetlights on Crook Street when I was a boy.
I really recommend it. I really recommend that you watch this documentary. Barstow 2018. The links are down below. And this is Okubo here. Please remember, it's always time to go indie now. You guys have a good one.
Hello everyone, Rebekah Jonesy here, filling in for J.K. Allen to do the review. Today I am doing A. Claire Everward's A Tangled Web. It is the first book in the Blackwell series. I'm going to get us started off by reading the blurb. Threats loom, and a long-hidden secret is at risk of being uncovered as a man and a woman, locked in an unwanted marriage, find themselves embroiled in a tangle of destructive webs. Neither of them had expected this. Tess Andrews needed to disappear. Ian Blackwell wanted the gossip chasers to stop disrupting his life. When the two of them said yes, neither had any idea who the other was, and they had nothing for each other but disdain and mistrust. But when Ian is threatened, Tess has a choice to make. Keep her head down, or help the man she married face an opponent who could destroy them both and risk him discovering her secret. A Tangled Web is the first novel in the new Blackwell romantic suspense series from the author of the groundbreaking Oracle suspense series, and of The First, her riveting debut novel. I have read other books by this author before. I've read both the Oracle and The First, well, the Oracle series, and I loved them both. You know, there's a slight hint of romance in them, which is really just a subplot. It does move it along, but it's not, the main focus of the book. It's not a romance. But A Tangled Web is. It is a romance with a suspense subplot. And wow. For an author doing her debut romance, she really knocked it out of the park. What she wrote is what romance authors try to get across, and she did it beautifully. Right off the bat, they're feeling each other out. There's mutual respect and disdain mixed together. Love it. It's very realistic. The problems they have are realistic. Maybe the solution is a little unrealistic. But when they come together, they do so as a business arrangement at first. So it is a business marriage. Both of them have pasts and things that they don't want the other one to know because, it's a business arrangement. You don't share everything with your business partners. But Claire turned on the heat. Not sexy times, not lust, not anything. She turned on the full-blown romance. This is amazing, you guys. It is absolutely amazing. There are things in here that this, this arranged husband, this businessman who's only doing this, for the paperwork, nailed it. Romance through the freaking roof. Amazing. Like all great romances, it starts off with a little bit of a spark. And a little builds up, but the little buildup actually kind of goes down to a smolder. So you got these, embers burning. And then when it does finally let go, boom, to the moon. It's great. It's great. Mixed in with that, you have Claire's amazing suspense that, she writes so very well. It's always behind the scenes. It's always very, very intricate. And this is intricate. As she writes in the book, it's a web within a web. And they've got to get through this to make it out to the other side before they will admit anything to the other. And it's great. Highly recommend it. 5.5 stars out of 5. It is a great book. You guys want to go read it. And as always, the writing is intense. Every scene has, at least 3 layers. It's so good. I mean, only someone like Claire can make a painting and a chair so romantic. Really, you guys, go check it out. You'll be glad you did. And as soon as you have, get back to me, please, and let me know what you think. And, of course, as always, remember to leave a review. So that's it for me. I am Rebekah Jonesy, signing out. And remember, everyone, read well and prosper.
Hi everyone, my name is Konn Lavery. I am a author of dark fantasy, horror, and thriller novels. Now, I have a new novel that just came out this June, and it's a historical thriller. Now, it's a little different from what I've done before, but I'm very pleased to share with you some reading from it. And this novel is called The White Hand. It is based in the Rutherford Manor universe, and if you check out Rutherford Manor on Facebook or rutherford-manor.com, you can learn more about it. Basically, this is a historical thriller that's about resurrectionists. So we're going to dive a little bit into the first chapter here to kind of get an idea of the whole premise, the scope, and the setting for the novel. The first chapter is called Best on the Market. Meat is a funny thing. It is what consistently makes up people and living creatures. At the same time, it is also something we consume. It isn't hard to make the distinction between the flesh that you eat and the kind that you don't. Edible meat is often defined by social and religious constructs. One side of the world says it's okay to eat a type of meat, while another part says no. Before the flesh is considered edible, an animal must be butchered or die of natural causes. Then it is merely meat with no distinction of what it was when it was living. This applies to people too. We look oddly similar to animals when we've been mutilated. This was messy, thought the man. The mutilated body he stood over was near death, gargling in the blood that oozed from his mouth with each weakening breath. The man's boot pressed lightly against the trousers of the soon-to-be deceased. He thought about moving, but saw little point. It would take a lot more than pasty skin, open organs, and a purple rib cage to induce nausea. Death did not bother him. Truthfully, once you've been around enough flesh and death, you find the lines of horror and acceptance really begin to blur. Your notion of what is taboo and what is not dwindles. You find yourself on the outskirts of what it means to be human. The constant grimness leaves you balancing on the edge of your moral compass, not knowing if you will fall into darkness. In a way, you are in a fight for your own life, just like the butchered animals, and just like the mutilated man. Well, this should work nicely, said a second man, who gripped a crooked wooden cane, complete with a leather-bound chicken foot for the base. He stared down at the man on the floor, whose breath continually softened. The open wound is what concerns me, Spaulding. the first man said, looking down to his comrade's youthful face, half concealed in the shadow from his top hat. Think they will notice? Spaulding asked. Wouldn't you? The first man returned. Spaulding extended his hand and shrugged. I mean, this kind of thing I've gotten used to from you and my father. To a common lad. They might not know the difference at all. People get hurt all the time. Sounds like you've answered your question. Yes, I suppose. Maybe if I knew a thing or two about who we were delivering the body to, I could understand your concerns, Spaulding said. The client is not typical either, the first man replied, while leaning down to grab the dead man's boots. Come, let's get him wrapped up. Put that cane down. Why did you even bring that thing anyways? Out of respect, Spaulding said, while gently leaning the cane against a pillar, causing the black feathers from the top of the stick to dangle above the blackened skull. Respect for whom? I don't feel offended. My friend, Spaulding said, looking at the skull. Ah, yes, Pierre. Didn't you kill him? Aye, that was a bit of a hiccup. That was my first kill, too. Spaulding sighed, leaning down to pick up the body by the armpits. The two of them lifted the body up, manhandling him over to the large linen cloth that laid on the dirt. They set him on the edge of the fabric, each grabbing a corner of linen and wrapping over the body. They then rolled the fabric and body on the ground, wrapping it up to form a burrito. The muffled groans of the man were audible underneath the linen for a few moments. And then there was silence. The first man stood up and looked around, examining the barn they stood in. The scene showed no evidence of the brawl they just had. No blood, no broken items. No one would know the difference. And that is a small snippet from The White Hand, Chapter 1, which follows the Savage and Flesher families as they embark on this journey to become resurrectionists, which is part of a historical era during the late 1800s, and it was an underground black market kind of profession. So definitely we can learn more all about it in this novel. Thank you. Take care.
Hi everyone, I'm AF Stewart and I'm here on GoIndieNow to talk about my new release of my latest poetry collection, which is Places of Poetry. Yeah, there's the cover. With a poem from the Cities selection section. It's called Reciting by Moonlight. Quietly sitting in a Parisian cafe, beneath the night of a silver moon, not far from the Champs-Élysées. A peaceful, tranquil end of day, under starlit shafts from La Lune, quietly sitting in a Parisian cafe. Strains of Tennyson drift my way as I stir espresso with a spoon, not far from the Champs-Élysées. Strong words, the voice holds sway, the impromptu recital, such a boon. Quietly sitting in a Parisian cafe. I close my eyes, all cares away, in poetry immersed, ears attuned, not far from the Champs-Élysées. A perfect night, coffee a beignet, but alas, this will end far too soon. Quietly sitting in a Parisian cafe, not far from the Champs-Élysées. Okay, so that was poem 1, and now we will go to poem 2, which is called Life. A sturdy bicycle waiting against the wrought iron fence, the early morning abating. A sturdy bicycle waiting over coffee and croissants, debating inconsequential offense. A sturdy bicycle waiting against the wrought iron fence. And here is poem number 3, called Twilight Blues, and this is from the rural section of the poetry book. Here we go, Twilight Blues. Come round when the sun sets down and the moon rises to play. Then we strum the guitar, and they roll up from afar to hear twilight blues on the bay. We wail at the night, get all the notes right, our midnight music soiree. It's fiddle and bass, the harmony we chase, to hear twilight blues on the bay. Okay, so that was a small selection from my book, Places of Poetry. And you can see there's a lot of different types of poems in it. We've got Stars and Moon, the sea, various things like that. It's loosely based on travel and journeys of the spirit. So you can find it on Amazon and other retailers. So there you go. One last look. Places of Poetry. Anyway, thank you. Bye.
Ragmork. That was what I called it. A presence I could only feel in the dead of night. Alone. This thing followed my every move. My grandpa assured me it wasn't real. But nothing could convince me otherwise.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Bryan Tann, and I am the author of Invincible Heart, the John Baker Chronicles, Book 1, a Permutation Archives division. This is a series that is a spin-off to Kendra Sauter's Permutation Archives series. In this first book, Invincible Heart, Soldier John Baker has been created by American scientists to capture or kill Mila Hunter at all costs. But unfortunately for the government and his creators, John's heart has other plans. This book is a political thriller, science fiction, action novel. There's other little hints of, some comedy or whatever, but mostly it's just action, and more action. So I'm going to read for you guys chapter 20. At this point, John has escaped the military facility in which he was being held and is now on the run. John continued his run. After he made his way out of the forest and stayed along the train tracks. He slowed as to not draw attention, not that it mattered. The land along the train tracks was almost completely isolated of human life. Do you think we will find a train? I hope so, Queen. I need some real company at some point because I'm getting bored as hell. John! John couldn't help but chuckle as he picked up his speed, leaving the world behind him in streaks. I'm kidding, Queen. No need to be so sensitive. As he couldn't help but feel a stab of guilt at the jab. She was sensitive, was doing all she could, and was quite proud. With each passing day, he appreciated more and more how connected they were, yet he still did not understand how deep their connection was. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I know. I know you're doing all you can. I am. You're all I've got, Queen. You're it. Without you, I wouldn't be alone. They replied in unison as he ran. The sun began its descent over the horizon as twilight began to take control. As he ran, he skidded to a halt. The light areas of forestation continued to demand his attention as he looked around, scanning the area for a threat he could not see. Something ain't right. Something hasn't been right for a little while, John. Yeah, I know. What do you think it is? I don't know. John reached behind himself, preparing to reveal his twin batons before stopping himself at the last second. He stood still and breathed calmly, extending his senses as far out as he could, as he skidded to a halt at his destination. A blur exploded before him as twilight continued to turn to evening and slammed into him, sending him staggering backward into train tracks, tripping him and sending him toppling end over end before he settled on his stomach, looking toward where he'd been standing. A figure wearing military fatigue stood in place of where he'd been. The man, John figured out by studying him, was far smaller than he was in height and body build. He was wiry, lithe, a tracker. His hair was cut short, but was beginning to grow outward. His brown-colored skin was void of any effects of perspiration. His body didn't look to show any exhaustion. The letter E was stenciled on the right breast pocket of his jacket as identification. He smells strange. He has a nanobot hive. He would, like us. No, John, not like us. I do not believe he has a queen. I can see him through your eyes. He looks like I did with the trigger. Yes. You don't need to do this, brother. John stood up, rolling his shoulders. You don't need to let them control you. We don't need to fight. Invincible Heart Project subject John Baker identified. Echo replied. Good job, Echo. John heard through the communication device. Engage. Let's see what you can do. The rest of the squad are on their way. Copy that, Echo replied. Others. This isn't good, John. This isn't good at all. You're goddamn right it's not. I figure that's probably a good stopping point right now. If you want to read more, you can go to Amazon.com, search my name, Bryan Tann, and pick up Invincible Heart. Available now in print and in ebook format, and coming soon to audiobook, read by me. Have a great one. Thanks for listening.
We could be happy. I don't need a fancy car or a trendy apartment. You're enough.
I have nothing.
You have me. And I'm not going anywhere.
Crisis Hotline, Simon speaking.
I'm going to kill them.
Kill who?
Kyle, Lance, and Christian. One way or another.
Sound like you have a plan.
I do. Wait for them to get here, then blow their brains out. At the time, I wasn't aware of Kyle's real agenda.
What did Kyle lie about?
About us. About himself.
Are you freaked out?
Yeah. I really like you. Which means I want to be totally honest with you.
Let the law do its job. You don't have to be judge and jury.
Or executioner.
Did you build around, did you have a theme in mind? Did you have a direction you wanted to go, like a thriller? You said, okay, I'm gonna make an LGBTQ thriller, and then develop it that way, or was that organically coming out of the characters and the things you created?
Well, it was a number of things. First of all, we had to come up with a genre in which that was selling, and right now LGBT thrillers are selling at places like the American film markets. Also, it had to be something that could be shot relatively quickly and relatively inexpensively. I had done a film previously that has a similar theme to this, but it's very different. But I took that bare bones scaffolding and I updated it, because I had done that film back in 2001, and I updated it and added a lot more depth. There's just a lot more to it. And especially fitting themes which I feel are pertinent and relevant, in which how social media can be abused, and it can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah, I have a core group of people you work with constantly, and if anybody goes to a Diamond in the Rough Films, which they should go check out all these great films that he's put out. They'll see familiar faces. This is kind of a departure in that sense, that you actually had a cast that probably maybe you knew people, but you didn't work with on camera first. And so talk about that a little bit, and talk about how you dealt with that, because I'm sure that was a different experience for you.
It was, my co-executive producer and editor, Mark Lunas, I've known since high school. So that's someone that's worked on literally everything I've ever done. But this cast is, a lot of them are from LA. They're all SAG eligible actors.
Nice.
Which I recommend for GoIndieNow people. SAG eligible is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I wasn't intimidated by that, even though I had work, because I love actors. When you love actors, I'm always in awe of how they do that and how they can get into that space. So that wasn't difficult. What was key, I guess, is we knew that we had to get the best cast we possibly could and get it quickly. And it was a challenging film to cast. There are scenes. I had two actors that I was interested in, and after reading the full script, they said no because of the scenes. So we were up against that a bit, but the actors we did get are just excellent, and I was really, really fortunate because not only are they talented actors, but they understood the spirit of needing to work very fast, under tight conditions, and they couldn't have been nicer or more patient.
How do you like to approach working with actors, since you have such a comfort level with the ones that you've worked with in the past? And is there something specific that you really liked that you hadn't experienced on a set before with actors?
That's a good question. As far as what my toolbox is, as far as a director working with actors, most of the time I really let them work. I'm certainly there to answer questions if they need direction, and sometimes they do. But most of the time I like to see what they create. I want them to create. And that works fine here. That they did that. Now, again, there are times when it's, I need that a little different, or, Mark, I don't quite know how to approach this. I have an answer. I'll always have an answer. I think what was a little bit unique is, or what that I hadn't experienced before, which is really nice, is watching actors be able to completely disappear in such a professional way during intimate scenes or emotional scenes or awkward scenes, and knowing that they felt, because of course I want to make them feel safe and comfortable, and just being able to see actors really give it their all every time, and be that. That's that. I've done acting. I've done that, and what would always keep me, I know what would keep me from being a really good actor is doing difficult scenes, whether they're nudity or a sex scene or whatever. I could never separate myself completely into that character. I would be aware of what I'm doing, and that only takes you so far.
Right.
And I'm in awe of actors that can really do that and actually revel in that.
Yeah,
you know, some of the more sensitive scenes we had, I actually had a couple actors say, "No, it's fun." Actually, I mean, it's dark, you know, but no, it's because it's a challenge for them. It's something different.
The lighting is another key component in this film. It plays a huge part in several pivotal moments. How much of that was your experience going into having made films before? Because a lot of things you've done is exteriors too. So there's a lot of interiors in this film as well. So talk about how you put together the lighting scheme. How did you figure that out? Because there's some really great key moments in this film that has that.
Well, I can't take the credit for that. In a lot of ways, you know, I know enough about cinematography to be dangerous. I know lenses and f-stops.
Is it about hiring the right guy
then?
then?
Yeah. I mean, Dante Yor, my cinematographer, I mean, this is a guy that has shot 23 feature films, including multi-million-dollar films with big names. I got a fantastic cinematographer for very little money because he loved the script.
Yeah.
He turns down 90% of the things he gets offered. I've talked to his crew. He brought his whole crew up, but he told me, "Mark, I could see these shots, and I could see it, and I got excited about what it could be created." So no, he deserves the credit for that. I mean, he also brought up killer equipment. I mean, you're shooting on a Red Dragon with all sorts of amazing lenses. I mean, and you've got a guy that's that talented with a crew that's talented. It makes me look really good. So awesome. I let him do his job.
You've seen the film. You've looked at it. I'm sure you've seen it on big screen several times. So tell me, I know that as filmmakers, we're our best critics, right? We're the ones who see every little thing and every detail and go, "Oh, I should have cut tighter there. Maybe if I had a little bit more time, we could have got that shot." But I want to know from you, what do you think you nailed?
Well, I'm a little different, I guess, than most indie filmmakers in that I'm a fan of my work. I stand by my work. I love it. I love watching it. If anybody ever is over and they want to see something, I'll show it to them. You know, I will. I'm like Robert Altman that way. He would do that. As far as what I nailed, I think what I nailed, looking at it, I guess there's a couple things. One, it's remarkable what we achieved with so little time and so little money. That's one thing. I nailed the fact that we maximized our resources.
Nice.
And I think the other thing that I nailed is, I think the story really works. It's, considering I wrote the script in 6 days, I mean, I wrote it really quickly, the plotting works. And I think the story's timely, and I think I think it'll get an emotional reaction. I think it will. I don't think you can just dismiss it.
Yeah.
So I guess the other thing I nailed is, if I had to say, is we made a good movie under tough conditions. Nice. It holds up. The movie works.
With a movie like this and the themes that you're associating with and putting out there, how careful were you about avoiding the cliches that tend to follow films like this?
Another good question. The most thing that I guess the way that I thought is, when I make a movie, because it's always been my work mostly, I'm not getting scripts yet, you know, it's always got to be something I want to see.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of movies, of course, and so many films that I see are very predictable these days, and that's on purpose now, because studios have done their focus groups and all that, and they found that people now, when they go out to a movie, they're going to spend, you know, $15 a person. They're going to park. They're going to be in traffic. It's annoying.
Yeah.
They don't want to take a chance on the movie anymore.
Right.
They want to. That's why you see everything is the same, because they want to know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what interests me, and so I'm going to come up with stuff that specifically does avoid as much convention as I can.
Nice.
And I guess that's what drives it. That's how I avoid it, is knowing that I haven't seen this before. Because I've seen enough movies, I pretty much know what hasn't been done. And I don't think this has been done, really. Not like this.
guys, C.L. Kanan here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you your monthly marketing tip. Today, I'm going to talk to you about newsletter subscribers, and more specifically, unsubscribers. Now, this is how I used to be with unsubscribers. As soon as somebody unsubscribed from my list, I would go and I would look them up and I'd see how long they'd been subscribed and how many they opened, and I would go through whichever email they'd unsubscribed from and just try to find the thing that just finally set them off and said, oh, I can't take this anymore. This newsletter is horrible and I just cannot take it anymore. I'm going to unsubscribe. And you know what? That is crazy. It is crazy to do that. And I see so many authors who get upset when they get unsubscribes. And I have finally got myself out of doing that. And the reason is, if somebody unsubscribed from your list, here's newsflash. They weren't your target audience. They didn't like what you had to offer. They weren't going to buy anyway. So it's good to get them off your list. You're going to be paying less because they're off your list. They were dead weights. And unless you're seeing huge unsubscribe rates, you're probably not doing anything wrong. They just ended up on your list and were not subscribed for the content that you were putting out. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't look over your list and see, what you can do, what you can improve, poll your audience and see, what they want more of. That is fine. Getting that data is great. But I want you guys to stop freaking out if somebody unsubscribes. Don't go on a rant on Facebook or Twitter or something. I've seen people do that. I had 2 people such and such unsubscribe from my list and I'm paid about it. And I'm going to tell everybody. And you know what that does? It just kind of makes you look like an a-hole in front of your audience. You want to be professional, in no matter how much in the back of your mind you're like, oh my God, they unsubscribed. Oh my God, what do I do? They unsubscribed from my list. I'm horrible. Don't feel that way. Because I'm telling you, you are better off without them. Because they were not interested in your product. They weren't interested in your books. And you were most likely paying for that subscriber who was not engaging with your content. So this this monthly marketing tip is mostly just a support message. If you have somebody who unsubscribes, just take a minute, breathe. It's going to be okay. You don't have to worry about it too much unless you've got a high amount of people unsubscribing. You might want to look at your email and see if there's something you could do to engage more, if there was something that people may have been offended by or something like that. But for the most part, if you're losing 2 or 3, 4 subscribers every month, that's natural. Everybody loses subscribers when they send an email because people's interests change. Some people don't even remember you. They'll be like, I didn't even sign up for this email. And then you can look on your signups and you're like, wait a minute. They signed up on this date through my website. So they had to have, been interested at some point. But seriously, don't dwell on it because they sure as heck probably aren't. It's not something that they probably even think about another time after they hit the unsubscribe button. So that's my whole marketing tip for this month, is just not to sweat the small stuff. 1 or 2 unsubscribes is not the end of the world. Your list will be fine, and it might even be more healthy. Your open rates and your click rates might even be better for losing that person who was just dead weight. So I hope you guys have a great month. I'll see you next month. If you have any questions at all, you can always message me at info@fiction-atlas.com, or you can message me on Facebook. Either way is fine. I'm here to answer your questions and help you any way I can. All right. See you guys next time. Bye.
The great thing about music festivals, I find, is oftentimes you come across finding or discovering a brand new band, one you'd never heard of before. And then you start to listen to what they have out there, and you wonder, how did I miss this band? Well, for this indie music review, we have such a band for you, coming fresh from my time at the Bash Festival. And it's a band that I didn't even know was going to be there that we ended up discovering. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this indie music review.
Shake, stomp, stumble and shiver, such a long way home.
When I think of music and how I judge it or how I enjoy it, it's usually has two criteria to it. One is how it plays in the car. How do I feel when I am driving? Does it energize me? Does it groove? Does it make me move? Does it settle me in? Or am I uneasy and uncomfortable? The second criteria would be live setting. Is it viable in a live setting? Does it make me move? Or am I just standing there kind of just watching something happen? And believe me, I've been to shows where I have just been standing there watching something happen. It's not unheard of. And, there's something to be said for music that you can play in the background, that you can play to distract you, that you can play to energize you while you're sitting down. All those things are fine, but for me, it really does start and stop with the car and in the live environment. Case in point, L7 is one of those great bands that is great for the car. They would be what you would call the forefront. They're right there. They're in your face. They're smashing and grabbing. And this would be more of a backbeat band. The band that I'm going to talk about today, which is Greg, ANTISTA, and the Lonely Streets. I stumbled upon them at the Bash Festival. I had no idea that they were even on the bill because they were part of the acoustic side stage that I talk about in my blog. If you haven't checked out my blog, the link will be in the description box for this show. Go check it out. I do a full review of the Bash Festival there, including the side stage, and Greg was a part of that. He did these songs pretty much acoustically, almost a cappella, like all by himself. He didn't have his band with him. He just stood up on stage with his guitar and played a couple of these great songs. And he really grabbed me. I had to know more. I had to go find him and listen to what he put out there. And I'm glad that I did. I'm a big rockabilly guy. I love me ska, rockabilly, swing, and Greg ANTISTA and the Lonely Streets is a band that is right up my alley. They're in the vein of a Social Distortion, of Reverend Horton Heat. Those are the kind of bands that I really like in this genre, and Greg is right. Greg and his band is right there with them. This is really beautiful musicianship. It plays so well, stand-up bass, great drumming, great guitar work. It really just, you can't help when you listen to it to tap your feet. There's great anthems like this one here.
They killed Lily Bow. They killed Lily Bow. They killed Lily Bow. What the hell? What the hell? They killed Lily Bow. What the hell?
And then there is also incredible, just interesting songs like this one here, Carmelita.
Carmelita, won't you come out tonight? I can't take no more, I can make it right. Come and see me like you used to do when you get off work, when the day is through.
And that's kind of more of the ska side of things. It's got that little bit of that twang, that ska twang in the background. But all in all, Shake, Stomp, and Stumble is the name of the album. Greg Antista and the Lonely Streets. I highly recommend it. If you're somebody who likes to move and groove when you're driving, you can't help, like I said, to pop your head, tap your hand. Your hands will tap the steering wheel. Your feet will tap on the floor. And when you go see them live, you'll move. You'll start to sway. Your hips will sway, and you may even get into full swing mode if you're really crazy and like to do swing dancing and stuff like that. This is a perfect album to do that to. I'm sure they have some outrageous shows, and I can't wait to see them live if I get the opportunity in full band mode. It would be amazing to me. I think it would be a great show. And so Greg Antista and the Lonely Streets, Shake, Stomp, and Stumble. Go check it out. Go enjoy it. And like I said, if you're looking for some new car music, this is the perfect backbeat music. It'll get you grooving, and it'll remind you of times when music was something special. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. We'll take care, and hopefully JD will be back in the next episode. But until then, cheers, Mama Estrada. Bye, everybody.
Say goodbye. Just remember, not all goodbyes are always a bad thing. Whoa, this is where I get off this ride. Whoa, this is where I finally say goodbye. The drugs and alcohol, the writings on the wall. You're feeling 10 feet tall. Your hands around my neck, you tore my Sunday's best. Then beg forgiveness again. Whoa, this is where I get off this ride. Whoa, this is where I finally say goodbye.
My name is Erik Kristopher Myers, and I am the director of the film. So I am doing something I've never done before, which is I am recording a video introduction. That's doubly weird for me because Butterfly Kisses was released this past October, Halloween of 2018, and all throughout the year leading up to it, we were touring film festivals throughout the United States, in Canada, and every single time that the film played, I was always asked to get up and do some sort of an introduction. And if I could get away with saying no, I would say no. And if I had to get up and talk, then it usually was sort of restricted to saying, "Hi, I'm Erik, this is the movie, watch it, and we'll talk about it afterwards." And the reason for that is that I've always felt that Butterfly Kisses works best if you go into it cold. And that made it particularly difficult for me when I was trying to cut a trailer for release. It's a very difficult film to sort of preface or to describe in one sentence or less. So with that being said, I thought I'd do something a little bit different, and I would preface the film. I would talk about it, maybe give you a little bit of background so that when you go in, you've got some wheels already turning. So basically the film came together like this. It was early 2015, I think it was January or February, and I stumbled across a post in a Facebook group from a gentleman named Gavin York. And Gavin York was like me from Baltimore, and like me, he was a filmmaker. And he was talking about something that he had found, and that he had found old tapes in the basement of his mother and father-in-law's new home, their retirement home. And he was trying to identify individuals who were in the film, and he was also looking for other filmmakers to collaborate with him on a documentary. And, you know, from what little I picked up, I was immediately interested in what he was doing. Gave him a call, we talked, we met, and he showed me what was on the tapes. Gavin believed that he had found what was the real-life equivalent to the Blair Witch Project. It was found footage that we've all seen, found footage movies, whether it's Blair Witch or The Last Exorcism or Paranormal Activity or any of those sorts of films, where we are watching what is allegedly documentation of the filmmaker's death or disappearance in a supernaturally based incident. He thought he found the real thing, something that was filmed here in Baltimore in 2004. I viewed the footage, and my opinion was, whether it was real or it was not, there was a story here, because Gavin was prepared to take this footage public and try to use it as his way into Hollywood. As a filmmaker, how could I pass up an opportunity like that, you know? It's kind of lightning in a bottle. Butterfly Kisses is the story of my journey along with Gavin. It's ruffled some feathers upon release. There have been threats of lawsuits, and there is apparently a tell-all book that is being written about my film.
You're watching Channel 36, Cable 7, Baltimore, Maryland.
Hi, I'm K. Patrick Glover. You're watching a special episode of Potluck. Today we're going to be talking about the making of the film Butterfly Kisses. If you haven't seen the film already, it's available on Amazon Prime. This would be a good time to pause your screen or your recorder and go take a look. With me today are Eve Hunkler, the mother-in-law of Gavin York, and Erik Kristopher Myers, the director of Butterfly Kisses. Eve, can you tell us a little bit about Gavin? What was he like before this film?
Gavin was a good guy. I mean, there was a lot of him that he wasn't really what we expected as a son-in-law. He wasn't Christian, he didn't go to church. I didn't know much about his family. But the important part was he took care of our daughter. He took care of his son. And he was, in all intents and purposes, he was trying to take care of his family by working. He was trying his best to do what he needed to do. Other than that, we didn't really know that much about him. He'd only been in my daughter's life maybe 5 years. Six years.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did he and Amelia meet?
Friends, two friends. She was actually at a summer picnic with our church, and one of the other friends of hers that she's known for a long time, Stacy, actually brought friends with her, and Gavin happened to be one of them. So she actually met him at a church picnic.
Erik, how did you meet Gavin?
Before we get into that, can we just take a second here and talk a little bit about why we're here? I mean, you just kind of like blasted right into the interview segment. Can we discuss a little bit about why we're here, what we're talking about?
Sure. We're here to talk about the life and the eventual death of Gavin York, who was in the film that you were documenting.
Right. But what I mean is, can we go to the next step and talk about why we are here today? You two decided you were going to do this episode, and I really felt I needed to be here to defend myself. And I think it's kind of important that we discuss that.
Okay.
No, hang on, I'm talking. I let you talk and tell your little story. I think we need to really lay some things out. So if you're not going to do that, please allow me. Which camera am I? It doesn't matter. Whatever.
I was invited just like you were invited. There wasn't any...
You were invited because the two of you are planning whatever book you're writing about the making of my film.
Okay, I'm writing a book on the death of Gavin York because the circumstances surrounding his death are suspicious, and the circumstances surrounding your film are suspicious.
Okay, so you're kind of, hey, camera guy, I can hear you talking. Okay, it's a little distracting. The problem that I've got right now is that when we decided we were going to make this documentary, Gavin and myself, he signed certain life rights over to me so that I could utilize any footage contained within the shooting, and you agreed.
Life rights?
You agreed, and your daughter agreed to not only allow me to utilize any sort of footage that contained you and your grandchild, whose face I blurred out, you're welcome. But you also willingly appeared on camera and allowed me to interview you in your home. Now that the film is out, you have been making as much noise as humanly possible to anyone who is willing to listen, whether it's on social media. I know you've tried to go to the local news. I know you have thrown around all sorts of accusations and threatened me with legal recourse as a result of the film that I have released. Now you're pairing up with this guy who's going to write some tell-all piece, and you two want to do a little cable access episode all about the fraud that I have allegedly perpetrated. So that's why I'm here right now. So if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'm happy to answer them. But first, for viewers at home, I really feel it's important that you understand that if I look unhappy, there's a reason why I look unhappy. I'm not here because I'm enjoying discussing this particular shading of the topic.
We have the possibility that this whole thing is real. And we have the possibility that this whole thing is a largely plausible hoax.
With me today, director of the film, Erik Kristopher Myers, Bart Hunkler, and his wife, Eve Hunkler, the in-laws of Gavin York. Bart, let me start with you. Who actually found the tapes in the basement?
I did find the tapes in the basement. I went down, new home, trying to just check out the heating system, and I actually ended up kicking what felt like something underneath the stand for the heating unit in the basement, and then I pulled out what appeared to be a box that said "Do not watch" on them. When I opened it up, there were tapes, many different tapes.
How long had you been in the house? It was a new house at the time, right?
New for us.
New for you.
Yeah.
How long had you been in the house when you found them?
What would you say?
Oh, less than a year.
Yeah.
So it had been a while. And Gavin had been over the house frequently, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So
you helped us move in.
Theoretically, Gavin could have put those tapes there and you would not have known.
Well, judging by the amount of dust that was and debris that was on top of the box, my impression would be that they'd been there for quite a while.
Okay. He showed you the footage on those tapes?
Yes.
Yeah.
When? How long a time passed between the time you turned that footage over to Gavin and the time he showed it to you?
Gosh, we looked at them. I remember calling Amelia when we saw them because we couldn't look at them ourselves. We're not that technically good at that kind of thing. We don't have the machinery at home, and we told her about them. She came over in a couple days. She grabbed them. And she said something like that he wouldn't be able to use them because of the type of tapes they were, or something like that. It's not what they use nowadays.
Right.
Something like that.
They weren't, I guess they were from a decade or more prior.
The type of tape that was used.
Right.
But she gave them, she said maybe Gavin would enjoy watching them, and they'll just take a peek at them, see what they are. And I guess it was like maybe a week or two. They came over the house for dinner, and we saw some of it. We didn't see all of it, but she just showed some of it to us.
Okay, so it was a week or two between the time Gavin had the tapes and the time they got back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Erik, how common are those type of tapes anymore?
First, I just want to go on the record as saying that I was, look, I didn't roll my eyes when you were talking.
I'm sorry.
I was advised that I come back and
right, and we appreciate you returning.
I'm just saying that I'm here. I'm not going to answer any questions I'm not comfortable with. So I just want that known, up front.
Okay. About the tapes.
The tapes. Those are mini DV tapes, and they were sort of what people used in the early aughts.
Okay. If somebody handed you a box of mini DV tapes, would you have a way of playing them?
You would need either a deck that was specific to tapes of that sort, or you would need a camcorder that you could then plug in and run either through your television or through your computer.
Would you have that sort of equipment laying around?
I have camcorders, yes.
Okay. Is it reasonable that Gavin, as a wedding filmmaker, would have that sort of equipment laying around?
I would assume that because he was about my age, he probably had cameras of that era. I did, and it is shown in the film, I did find one day that we were in his home and we were filming, I was just, looking through some of his old cameras, and I found that he not only had mini DV cameras, but he also had a Panasonic DVX 100, which was sort of the top of the line in 2004, and also is shown throughout the found footage as being the camera that Feldman used. And then when we came to the Ilchester Tunnel, as you see at the end of the documentary, when he texted me and said, bring the film crew, he was there at the end of the trestle, and he had his tripod and he had that camera set up and was recording. But I guess he was trying to recreate, what Feldman.
We talked a little bit last time, you got upset, but that ending that you're talking about, or not ending, but that sequence that you're talking about in the film is not the same sequence that is in the work print cut. Why is there a different sequence there?
I don't know what you're referring to, so no comment. I think you just need to see it and judge for yourself. The film is as real as you want it to be. I encourage you to pull out your phone afterwards. Never pull out your phone when the movie is on, because people like you suck. Pull out your phone when the movie is over. Go down the rabbit hole. Google the names, Google the people, and challenge the old adage.
The camera doesn't lie.
That the camera never lies.
Because it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for coming.